yeah. Fire, fire, yeah.
All right, let's watch it. Hawk Tuah is back.
Hawk Tuah Girl's back with a released podcast that was immediately disavowed by nearly everyone in it who said, oh, we think there might have been insider trading involved.
The podcast was not supposed to go live. They f***ed it up every step of the way. They leaked the podcast, and then they f***ing posted it when it was supposed to be canceled. They f***ed it up twice, and the third was the launch itself.
Accusations flying.
No, this has got to be a publicity stunt. There's no way.
The episode got deleted.
There's no
but
way.
It's still out there in the ether now with everyone nitpicking it apart. It's kind of a complete disaster for the Hawk Tuah team. And I found even more kind of wrong with it. I want to go through it because, yes, we do get mentioned in it. Sort of
Obviously.
As the boogeyman of crypto. We're going to get you if you rug a coin.
Well, maybe don't do really bad stuff. I don't know. Is it really that hard not to rug pull? Like, you already have millions of dollars. Do you really need $3 million more dollars?
You know, we might come after you.
CoffeeZilla got on there. Yeah, scary guy. Let me tell you, don't ever want to have a conversation with him.
Whoa. Don't ever want to have a conversation with me.
I'd love to talk to Coffee. He sounds fun.
I don't know what's the problem here. I'm Joe Rogan inches tall, guys. It's not a striking figure here.
Joe Rogan inches is strong. He's got himself a short king. It's okay. We like short kings.
You're going to be scared of. If you meet me in person, you're not going to be like, you know? Relax. It's fine. Just get on the call. Let's have a conversation. I don't understand. And I also thought this was weird because Haley Welch's lawyer invited me on the show. In fact, like, really, really wanted me on their show. And kept telling me how much Haley Welch liked me. Hence the t-shirt, you know. I used to like CoffeeZilla until he wouldn't come on my podcast. Then he is, you know, Voldemort, and we can't mention him. He's scary. Watch out. Don't talk about CoffeeZilla.
You wronged them.
Intimidating.
Obviously.
Here's the message I got from her lawyer. Haley would like to have you on as a guest on her podcast. You'd be the first guest since the failed crypto token launch. And would get significant amount of views. Would be very friendly. This guy must not know me. She really likes you. Wow. I thought she didn't want to have a conversation with me. What gives? You know, what happened in only a few weeks? You know, I turned.
Didn't she kind of shut down the conversation after he started talking and stuff? Yeah, I'd have to jog my memory. Maybe he brings it up.
Into, you know, the most scary man in the world.
Yeah.
Now, I denied it. I said, look, I'm not a fan of what she did with Hawk. I have so many questions. You know, I need details. And then this guy says, I understand your position. I think the more details come to light, you'll understand she was a victim in this. She does care about her fans and others that have lost money tremendously and is cooperating with all authorities, as well as Berwick Law Group. This has all been very traumatic for her. And basically, come on the show, please. You are.
It's so traumatic living on a pile of money. It's very traumatic to live on millions of dollars.
The podcast's top priority for the first episode in 2025, guys. Me, the boogeyman. I was honored, to be honest. I was like, wow. I could be on the Talk Tuah show. But, of course, I don't want to rehab someone's image who scammed people. And I really felt that questions had not been answered that should have been answered.
Fair,
Such as, what was the agreement with Haley Welch and with Doc Hollywood? Very simple question, right? Basically, Haley Welch's position is, oh, I was a victim. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how much. I was barely going to make money. 125K plus, like, you know, half of 10% of the tokens locked for a year. Like, this terrible deal. I got taken advantage of by these monsters.
Hold on, how much?
How much? I was barely going to make money. 125K plus, like.
I was barely going to make money. 25K. I don't know. Maybe out of millions of dollars, like. I mean, I guess. 125K? I misheard! Oh my god, I'm gonna throw up. I thought she said 25K, and I was like, okay, 25K out of $1 million is not that much, but it's still a lot of money. 125K. Ugh.
You know, half of 10%
Half of
of the
10%.
tokens locked for a year. Like
Oh.
this terrible deal. I got taken advantage of by these
Sure.
monsters. Like that was kind of their position. And all I wanted to know was, you know, give me the contract. Show me that is true.
Are they gonna pull a Niji Sanji where they don't let you show the contract because they know that they're gonna find faults in it? Yeah.
And unfortunately, they were not able to give it.
Ooh,
He's not in
wonder
a
why.
position to share it, he says. I'm sorry. I said, can't verify anything you say then. Even what you told me about the 50% split, which I had heard Hawk Tuah girl was going to make 50% of all the profits.
What?
And he kind of told me, no, that just applies to the tokens. So I was like, oh, well, maybe she's less of a stakeholder in this than I thought. I don't know. I even pinned a comment on it, which we'll talk about. I said, no idea if that's real. He says, come tape the podcast and I'll let you read it. I thought this was really skeevy. I thought that's weird. And not even like let me post it, but just read it. That's super weird. And in general, I find that in these situations, going on people's podcasts where I've reported on them, they are highly likely to do sketchy editing, to try to kind of control the situation so they look as good as possible.
Well, that's what disingenuous and evil people do. I mean, ultimately, if I was an evil person, I would absolutely do that. 100%.
But I'm just not in a. I don't think that ever makes sense. Like for me, reporting on a scam to then like go on their podcast. It doesn't work. So I say no, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm not evil,
they bring
Chad.
FaZe
Come
Banks
on.
on because FaZe Banks is like the closest thing to doing what I did as well on the live stream. He also confronted Doc Hollywood, and so he was sort of one of the people that broke the news.
Oh, that's the big guy.
I thought, okay, that's a pretty natural guy to bring on your
crypto
podcast.
guy.
Now, FaZe Banks reached out to me and said, hey, I'm probably going to do this podcast. Do you have any questions that you'd like to get answers to? I said, yes, I do. I'd really like to see that contract. Now, spoiler alert, FaZe Banks didn't get to see it either. They didn't get to show it.
Ooh.
But he also told me, look, we're going to tell everyone, do not talk about this show. It doesn't work if you talk about it because people are going to front run the coin. That's sort of how you guys got into this mess. This would be a disaster if you do that. So our only stipulation, these guys are very positive about crypto, much more like they kind of wanted to like rehab her image basically in the crypto space. So it's like a
So they could fleece even more money. Oh, yeah, poggers.
dream get for Haley Welch. Like this is amazing for her. And because FaZe Banks is basically going to like make it be like,
Good
oh,
idea.
well, you didn't
I
really
should do that.
mean to do that, right? But, you know, he's going to ask some questions, whatever. Well, turns out that didn't go so well because when this podcast went live, I thought maybe things went well. Turns out it didn't because Banks released this. He said, I agreed to do our first podcast back. I had heavy stipulations of not letting the market get manipulated. I think that's basic. Her team finding a real solution regarding the money she made. Those were non-starters. These people leaked or insider traded the token. We noticed a random spike in volume on the coin the day we did the podcast, along with random messages asking if we did the podcast. So are you guys getting this? Somebody front ran the podcast to buy up all the coins because they knew, ooh, everyone's going to like
Well,
it.
when you run with evil people or people that want to make money, of course they're going to leak it. There's no incentive to be trustful if you can take advantage of those people. Why wouldn't you do that if you only care about money? Of course, yeah.
When they released this
Why are you
podcast, it's
surprised?
front run the coin, which is just horrible. It's like, what do you want to re-victimize people?
That's pretty funny.
So
Not
they
gonna
call
lie.
off the pod. They're like, look, even the people most charitable towards Hawk Tuah say, we're out. We're done. But today, the episode got leaked. Apparently, there's an agreement. The podcast is never going out, but today it got leaked. I say that because some of the accompanying clips that got clipped seem to be good for Haley Welsh. Like where she cries, about the rug pull. And people were saying maybe they kind of felt bad for her, right, from this leaked show. Here's Dexerto saying, Haley Welch broke down in tears
saw this.
while talking about the alleged rug pull of her.
I want to start.
Oh, Chad, I made $125,000.
I'm saying thank you to all my true fans and all the people that actually watch my stuff and they keep up with me. We're trying to sort out all the pieces and stuff to like get all this figured out and make everything right. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry.
No, don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. Everything's gonna be good. We're gonna be good.
No, you're not. FaZe Banks canceled the episode. Are you guys getting that? He was like, I can't be a part of this, and they posted the clip.
Who leaked it then? I don't know. That's so funny. Some leaker just said, "Okay, fuck it. We ballin'."
It. That's unbelievable. Do y'all understand how
White
insane
woman
that is?
ulting.
How this idea got brought to me, it was supposed to be like what do they call it, a long-term coin. And the guy that ran the account, he was like, oh, we're going to change like the way everybody thinks of crypto. Crypto's going to be a good place. And I feel really bad for all the people that got affected by it, and it just didn't go the way I planned.
That's right, guys. Haley Welch is very sorry. She wants you to know she did not
I'm
intend
sorry,
it to go
too.
that way. And that podcast clip, yes, it wasn't supposed to go out, but it just leaked. We don't know how. I approached, of course, the guys behind it. They said it was an editor mistake. Oh, oops.
What?
Yes, the guys who interviewed us thought we may have insider traded the coin, but this guy says he vouches for the internal team, saying it was none of them. And Better, which is Jake Paul's team, I guess, no way they would ever do something like that, guys. Believe us, we will likely never know the info leak. The clip posting leak today was an accidental by Better's editor who had the episode in the YouTube queue waiting on approvals to release.
That is such cap. I edit ahead as well. I do that for my own channel, but you can just not schedule it. You can literally just not schedule it. You don't have to like put a date on it. You can make it like unprivate or privated and then put a schedule list on it. I find that so hard to believe. As someone who actually edits and posts stuff.
Now, I don't know if this is true or
the leaks were completely out of context and edited. Yeah, probably just on purpose, right? So that makes it even more unbelievable to say that it's not an accident.
false.
Or more believable that it's an accident, sorry.
I thought the weird thing about this video is that,
Or less
like,
believable.
everyone has
I'm
had,
confused.
anyone in media who's, like, had a sensitive episode recorded, you don't, like, do all the work if you
Right.
think it might get canned. Like, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
These people not only edited the show, they put an ad in the leaked version of the episode, okay? So I'm not saying it didn't leak.
Redeem code.
I'm
talk
saying
to
it's
it.
highly convenient.
This started. Game Time believes in me, y'all, and I believe in them.
Game Time's more loyal than most of y'all's mans out here.
Yeah, some of those guys just leave it the first opportunity they get. Not Game Time.
Not Game Time, guys. Game Time wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not on purpose. Chat. No. Chat, go buy Smuggle and a plushie. Just gonna randomly include that in my leaked video.
Leak an episode on you.
Go
So that's
buy
just the
Code
start
Smug.
of this atrocious episode. But now that it's out, I did take a look at it, and it made me think twice about something that I've been trying to get to the bottom of for a while, which is that contract. The contract I keep asking about. Who was supposed to make the money? Right? That's always the question in a case like this. That's what the boogeyman wants to know. I got to know who to scare. I got to know whose bed to get under to scare them at night. And I've been repeatedly asking this, and as I've said, basically their position is that she was just the small fry. She was the dupe. She was the person who got tricked into promoting this thing, right? The scam. But there was a certain thing she said that confused me, because I've heard two things. I've heard Haley Welch is getting half of everything, which is she's not the mark. She's like one of the main players. Or two, she's basically getting $125K and nothing else. Well, I heard this during the show, and it made me think, Interesting.
Like half the money, it was supposed to go like into my charity. That's really why I agreed to do it.
Did you hear that?
Like half the
Charity? That's the first time I'm hearing of her talking about a charity, dude.
money.
Half the money. Now, that's very interesting. That's very different from what we've been told, which is like, oh, it's just 125K. I don't know if the part about the charity is true, that it was all supposed to go to charity. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Again, that's why I keep asking about the contract. Now, I went to their lawyer,
contract for
and I was like,
you.
look, I don't understand the secrecy with the contract. You could settle this so easily. This guy says, I'm on a phone call. Then he says something he's been saying the whole time. As I've said, the 50% of net proceeds, that's apparently what she's talking about, half the money, was from the mutually agreed upon allocation of tokens. 10% locked for 1 year with a 3-year vest thereafter. Memetic, which is Doc Hollywood, was to get the other 50% of the 10%. So not 50%, only like 5%,
I'm trying to
1
math.
year
It
locked
makes
out.
no
That's
sense,
a
but
terrible
sure.
deal if you guys don't know that. And then he says her intention was to give her side to charity. We never got far enough down the road to make those questions. With regard to not sharing the contract, we can't, blah, 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 blah. We're in a legal situation. Now, this is where I finally had to play some of the cards that I had kept close to the chest up till now. See, I've been talking behind the scenes. I've been doing my little digging, right?
Ooh.
And I got a very
Based.
interesting insider document that a lot of people don't know about. This is from Doc Hollywood himself, which, if you remember, is like the key guy. Here he is saying...
He's the one that freaked out at CoffeeZilla, for those that don't know. Yeah, he's the one that schizoed out and then said, get him out of here and stuff, basically. The main hedge monkey, so to speak.
We'll do best to make it as
Head
simple as
monkey.
possible. The pre-sale raise is 50-50 Project Haley. Fees for market making and LP is split between us and Haley 50-50.
Yeah, he muted Coffee, yeah.
Now, that's a very, very different story than I've been told up until this point. It wasn't 50-50 pre-sale. Like, that's millions of dollars pre-sale. The fees were millions of dollars, okay? Or like $1 million. And that's what I say. Story's very
So
different.
much
This guy
money.
says,
I'd
I think you
puke.
can safely distrust anything coming from Doc Hollywood's mouth. He's denying it. He's saying, that's not true. And then he says, look, I just can't have the contract published online, willing to let you see it with your own eyes, and saying that's why he was going to let me see it on the podcast. I said, well, these messages were prior to the failure of Hawk Tuah coin. So I don't understand why would Doc lie? Like, this isn't him saying it to cover himself later. It's him, like, talking in a chat with other insiders back then. So?
Because I'm gonna be honest, I thought that the entire thing, I watched the whole, like, little podcast or whatever, the expose. That guy struck me as a really deranged, really emotional, money grubby guy. I think he just probably fumbled and made a mistake and didn't think through what he was saying. It's very possible.
Once again, Christian denies it. He goes, he's not
Yeah.
right. I said, I don't understand your position. You want me to not trust internal messages from before the launch and trust you who refuses to produce evidence. This guy says, look, I can tell you what I think, but I don't have any way of proving this.
Position chat.
I then say, you
Let
said
me
on the
look at your
podcast you
balls.
negotiated the contract personally.
I negotiated the contract with the company.
I don't get why Haley would benefit from such a bad contract if what you said is true. And this is really how I feel. Half of 10% of tokens plus 125K makes 0 sense for someone who's bringing in all of the name recognition. Like, you're bringing the whole thing and you're getting this, like, measly piece of the pie. It doesn't check out. Like, 125K is a lot of money, but they made like $4 million.
Millions, yeah.
So then he says this, the contract says she was paid 125K on signing, 200K within 30 days of launch. Interesting. We didn't know that. And
Okay.
50% of the net proceeds of the project with mutually agreed upon tokenomics. The tokenomics we agreed to were for half of the 10% of the tokens. Now, I want you guys to realize that what he just said is backtracking on what he's been saying the entire time, which he's been saying the entire time.
He's
Oh, it's just
lying.
50% of the
On
10%.
purpose.
50% of the tiny amount of tokenomics we're going to eat. No. What he's saying here, finally, he's giving us the real story. It's 50% of the net proceeds of the project, period. That
So he got $2 million? Just straight up.
It is completely different from what they've told me. And so I say 50% of the net proceeds does not mean half of 10%. It means 50% of net
50% of
proceeds,
the
which is
net,
market
yeah.
making, pre-sale. This is like $4 million that they talked about.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's just trying
that's
to
a
play
lot of
dumb here,
money.
but he goes, we were told by Memetic that MM fees and pre-sale funds were going to be used to run the project. Guys, it was $4 million. You think it takes $4 million to run a meme coin?
Yes.
Or like 3.9 million? Sorry, it's like 3.9, I think. How are you getting that 50% only applies to 10% of the tokens? I'm baffled. You think they need $3 million to run a meme coin? 3 plus, 3.9
Yes.
roughly. The dev team, by their own admission, said they have
Chad, I need $3 million to run this stream. Come on. Chop chop. Dude, imagine just like pulling shit out of thin air. Be like, yeah, I need $3 million to run this tokenomics, bros.
4 guys.
Ridiculous.
4 guys
Can't
do not
believe
need
these
to
people
split $4
sleep at
million
night.
4 ways,
Ow.
right? And so then they just kind of start doing this weird dance. And it got me like realizing like, yeah, they're just trying to get out of it. Like if you think for a second, they would have said, oh, we only want the 10% if this project succeeded. You're mistaken. They would have asked for the millions of dollars. Now they're saying it because that money's getting them in trouble, right? There's a lawsuit about that money. So they're saying, oh, we weren't entitled to that. No, that's not us. Christian Baker said, we didn't even know the
So
amount of money
much
raised
lying,
from the
bro.
pre-sale until launch. I say, yes, but you're entitled to that per the literal contract. Also, we were told Meteora was on a de-escalation schedule from 15% down to 1%, and that would happen one after launch. Obviously, that didn't happen. And he said, my understanding is that a large tranche of the pre-sale money was put in the LP. We didn't have the access to the dev. We don't know what wallets. We were also told...
I honestly think crypto's mostly such a successful scam is because most people don't have the capacity nor the will or wherewithal to even go this far like CoffeeZilla does to try and break it down and find loopholes in what they're saying. Like, CoffeeZilla is the guy that goes and pins shit on a board and ties like red rope around each point and being like, okay, so this means this, but then they said this. It's so convoluted. Like, I personally wouldn't be able to like do this. I find this so boring. CoffeeZilla is the guy that's providing this, and it's insane to me that people get away with this.
Well, pre-sale
This
tokens
takes
would be on a
months
1 month
to
lock.
work.
1 year vest. That didn't happen either.
Yeah.
And once again, this is where I have to play some of my cards. Because like I said, I've been investigating this. I'm being told, oh,
Strong.
we weren't going to make any money. And I'm just trying to say, like, you guys aren't the victims. I hope you guys are understanding that this is kind of my feeling in
they
all
are
this.
the victims.
They're trying to
They
be
only
like,
made
oh,
$4
we're
million.
gonna die. And that's just not true. Like, that's not what they stood to make. I said, what do you mean? You told me I could disregard what Doc said. Remember, he said, oh, you can disregard it. But y'all literally had a contract for 50% of net proceeds. Doc himself said the project was going to cost a few $100,000. If
Oh, but
that's
we
the
need
case,
$3 million.
Pre-sale $2.8 million, fees $1 million, made almost $4 million. Y'all are contractually owed like $1.6 million. And then I shared another insider text I have from Doc Hollywood, where he says, what we can do is put a hard number to the side for the project as cost. Like, we spent a few $100,000 on the project already. That money will be paid back to us off top. Then the profit is paid out. If a few $100,000 is what it costs and the profit's paid out, who's the profit entitled to?
Me!
Hawk Tuah girl!
Yeah!
That's who it is. And we're all being gaslit about like, oh,
Smug
I'm the victim.
Tuah.
I stood to make no money. Wrong. You wanted to make no money after you realized the money is like being scrutinized and being sued over and possibly being looked into by law enforcement. Like, we don't.
So she's just stupid. Okay, I was correct. Again, the impression I got before this whole smug Tuah. I said smug Tuah. Hawk Tuah coin thing happened. I listened to like her podcast for a good 20 minutes and I was like, this is so... I don't want to use the word simpleton because some people call me a simpleton and like I'm a fence sitter, but it's so basic that I don't understand the appeal. But she really is that simple. She got talked into this and didn't think it through, didn't talk to a lawyer, got scammed, got duped, and became the scapegoat. Inadvertently, basically.
No. So this literally drives me crazy. And then he goes, where's this from if you don't mind me asking? I say, well, it's an insider chat, allegedly between Doc and the team members. And then he says,
Allegedly.
you're right.
Good
that
to see
as it
that.
stands, she may be entitled to whatever amounts. However, she was supposed to have mutual approval on tokenomics. Her not being given the opportunity to approve the transaction fees, SAFs, and pre-sale identities led to the end result. So literally, he's admitting that he's been not telling the truth about how much money they stood to make. You're right. She may be entitled to millions of dollars from a scam. Like, what?
Yes! I want my cut,
They
Chad.
said this. It's insane. So that was a huge revelation. We finally got that out of them. They've been saying this whole time. They even said it during the pod. This guy kind of did this whole thing of like the back end. Oh, the back end. It's only like 50% of 10% locked up for a year. And when the managers take their
I don't
cut,
even know
it's
what that
a tiny amount
backup
of money.
Back end,
like tie-up
there was
is.
a 10% allocation of the token that would be on a 1-year lock, and then a 3-year drip after that. Of that 10%,
Yeah, no idea what that means.
half of that was supposed to go to the company that created the project, and half was to go to her. So out of 100% of the token, she would have had 5% at the end. Obviously, she has lawyer, manager, business manager, so even that 5% would have been cut down by over a quarter.
I just found this unbelievable. They're playing the victim. And that's kind of
Well,
my
yeah,
problem with this whole thing.
obviously.
Look, I can
No, it's not
believe a
Logan
lot
Paul, I
of
don't
plausible
think.
stories here. Now, I really don't believe anything they tell me at this point, but I could be convinced that this might be the case. Maybe it's the case that Hawk Tuah's team was under the impression that all these pre-sale investors were locked up for a month, right? That's what they told me. Again, I don't believe them necessarily, but it's plausible, right? I asked him, when did you learn that the insiders had 0 lockups? He says, when they started dumping. I was told all along the SAFs had a 1-month lock, 1-year linear vest thereafter. I can tell
They
you
could
what
be
I think
lying,
happened, but I don't have any
But they could be lying about the whole being locked up for a month where they can't sell. It's so cringe.
way of proving it without seeing the SAFs.
Ah.
I have the SAFs.
So
I can tell you what
slimy.
happened. The pitch deck did say it was a 1-month lockup. Okay? And then you get the SAFs, the actual token agreements with like the real investors. No lockup.
Ooh.
That's how it all kind of went down, fellas.
Locked out.
They lied and they deceived people with fake investment lockups. Like they gave a pitch deck that was not really what the pitch deck ultimately turned out to be. Whether that was a last minute change, whether there's some great way to explain it, I don't think there is. But look, you can believe that, right? But Haley Welch's team this whole time has been acting like so unbelievably dishonest in how they're framing all this to try to make her look like as sympathetic as possible instead of admit.
But you want to really know why they're doing this is because the law enforcement isn't on their ass. They think they can get away with this. I don't know how far this can actually go into like police work or investigating, how the Federal Trade Commission, I think that's in charge of this kind of stuff. I don't know how far they're gonna go into looking into this because they don't have that fire lit under their ass to be honest with anyone. Law enforcement's starting to look a closer look at it. I mean, I sure hope so.
Like, actually, we
I
did
just
have
don't
some
know.
complicity in this. Maybe we should have asked more
Definitely
questions. We
sounds
did stand to make
lax.
way more money than we've let on in a lot of these interviews and with journalists. And we haven't been exactly forthcoming about that. So it makes it hard to be charitable, which kind of they're wanting you to be if we can't see these contracts, if we don't know
gonna
what
be
they
charitable
knew,
to Hawk
right, at the
Tuah.
time when all this stuff happened. And it clearly was a scam because the pitch deck said one thing. They said it was a lockup. The SAFs said it wasn't a lockup. But it's hard to be charitable, right? When this is kind of the way they're interfacing. Even with the FaZe Banks crew, who wanted to
FaZe
be
is
charitable to her.
something
pretty
else,
explicitly.
man.
Like, they were like, look,
Remember FaZe
even
was
when they
just a
talked about me,
gaming
they're like, hey, it's not
thing.
going to be that bad. We're not going to be like CoffeeZilla.
Yeah, scary guy. Let me tell you, don't ever want to have a conversation with him.
We're a little more charitable than coffee. I think
You're on your own podcast. Of course you're gonna be nice to yourself. You're part of like crypto culture. I know for a fact FaZe Banks has been in crypto stuff. Of course they're gonna be nice to the other crypto scammers.
Coffee kind of has a little bit of
Oh, no,
disdain
they're
for
not
crypto in general.
scammers, chat.
Us, on the other hand, we live and breathe it every day. We want to see crypto succeed.
Even those guys who admit that they have like a bias towards being charitable, right? Maybe I
Coffee's
have a
so
bias
scary.
for
I'm
being
so scared.
scary. But even they don't want anything to do with her team because her team is leaking stuff, messing up, like all this stuff with supposed insider trading. Again, their team denies it. I got to be clear about that. But clearly somebody was trading on the information, which they shouldn't have, and then leaking the episode as an accident. So, yeah, I just wanted to cover this story.
Chat, don't
just
leak my
explain how bad
episodes on
faith
accident.
they've sort of been throughout this, some of the revelations we've learned since then, and also admit there's plenty we don't know that I hope will be revealed in this lawsuit, which is happening about this coin, fighting for this money, that clearly Haley Welch's team is like, oh, we don't want that anymore. We just want to, we want to say we're not entitled to any of that. And so I do hope in that lawsuit things actually come out and victims get their money back. But yeah, I just wanted to cover this story now that the Hawk truth is floating around on the interwebs. I wanted people to get a more clear, holistic picture of what actually happened, both on the screen and behind the scenes.
Yeah, very truthful
see ya.
people. Yeah, I trust these people with my life, chat, for sure. They would never fuck me over.
Fire, 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 fire.